Well, this show has launched an ongoing investigation into ties between the government and military of China and leading figures here in the city of Washington. We're finding all kinds of interesting things. Here's one thing that we have found. 4 Democratic members of Congress supported efforts by what appears to be a Chinese government front group. The China-U.S. Exchange Foundation, is led by a top communist official, recruited American students for a 2-week study trip to China, where they would have been propagandized to support the Chinese regime. And guess who went along? These members of Congress: Sheila Jackson Lee, Jim Clyburn, G.K. Butterfield, and Barbara Lee. They lent their names to that effort. Michael Pillsbury is director at the Center for Chinese Strategy at the Hudson Institute and the author of the single best book on the Chinese question. It's called The 100-Year Marathon. He joins us tonight. Dr. Pillsbury, should members of Congress be lending their name and reputation to this kind of effort? No, they should not. Members of Congress have automatic security clearances, and frankly, they have funds to visit China whenever they want. The U.S. Embassy will escort them around, arrange visits, and give them classified briefings about what's going on in China. So if a member of Congress supports this kind of informal activity and takes funds to do it, to pay for the travel and let the Chinese make the arrangements, they miss out on getting the truth about China from our own government. I think it's a mistake to do this. It is a mistake, and it's unfortunately kind of common here. Google is in the middle of what seems to be a real controversy over the search engine that it has been secretly developing on behalf of the government of China. The Intercept reported today that they built a prototype that would link users of the search engine to their own cell phone numbers, which would allow, of course, the Chinese government to identify people based on what they searched for. We contacted Google, and they declined any comment about this. What's your view of it? Well, I think Google's highly embarrassed. They hold themselves out as an organization of 88,000 employees who believe deeply in human rights and progressive causes, in privacy. And now they're essentially caught by this one scientist who has resigned in protest and told a lot about the project. It apparently went by the name Operation Dragonfly. And Dragonfly was known only to a small team, fewer than 100 people inside Google. So the others didn't know. And apparently the previous CEO, Sergey Brin, took a stand on this in 2010. Wouldn't let it happen, wouldn't help censorship in China, got credit in the Wall Street Journal for doing it. But now fast forward 8 years, and Google has reversed itself, but done so secretly. This seems to be the problem. I think they didn't show up at a Senate hearing they were invited to. It's a growing, I hate to say scandal, but we use that word too much perhaps in Washington, but it's a growing problem for Google. But since the rest of us are so wholly dependent upon Google's judgment to get our information about everything in the world, how should we feel about this company helping the authoritarian government of our main rival keep its subjects under its thumb? Well, I think the Congress needs to invite them back and make sure they come. Obviously, subpoena power may be what's required. The trick here is that the technology of doing this, being able to track somebody's searches for words like human rights or dictatorship back to their phone number and then share that with the Chinese authorities. The Chinese themselves can't do that. They had to turn to Google to do this. And Google, apparently, according to the gentleman, the hero, I think, who's quit in protest, Google is going to use this as the lever to make up for 10 lost years of revenue and sales that they haven't had in China, because the previous founder, Sergey Brin, refused to do this 8 years ago. Well, good for him. I mean, they certainly have a lot of money. It might be worth just being decent, you know. It shows a growing influence of China and the Chinese market. It's terrifying. And you've been on it before anybody. Dr. Michael Pillsbury, thank you very much, as always. Thank you.